Testing one. So all the parents of the dumbest kids in the Southeast got together, and they were upset because none of their kids could make it into college anywhere. They tried and couldn't get in, so they all got together. Some of them had money, one of them won the lottery. And they said, let's just make our own college. That's what we're going to do. So they formed their own college, and it was a college of the dumbest kids in America. I mean, these guys were dumb. Well, they wanted to play sports like everybody else, so they got up a basketball team and they started to play, and lo and behold, they had a guy there playing basketball who was as good as Michael Jordan and Larry Bird combined. I mean, this guy could fly through the air and dunk that. I mean, he could spin around in circles and dunk it backwards. And this guy led their team to victory time and time again against these other colleges. Well, the other colleges began to complain because they talked to some of these kids before the games and after the games and realized, these are some dumb kids. How are they in college? So they called the NCAA, and they came to investigate. And they said that before the next game could be played, there must be a public examination of this star basketball player so that they could see if he was really at college level. So they agreed to it. So it was the night of the big game, and they told him to brush up all that he could. So right before the game started, they called this player to the midcourt, and he stood there and faced all the people from his school, and then this other school was behind him, of course, across the court. And they said, well, do you think you're ready for the examination? He said, I'm ready. I'm ready. They said, now, you know the lot's riding on this, because this team doesn't get to play tonight, and this school is going to end up shut down if you miss the question. It's a one-question test. He said, I'm ready. They said, all right. What is 7 plus 5? Man, this guy, he thought about it. He said, 7 plus 5. He counted across his fingers, counted again. Everybody was pouring sweat. He took off one of his tennis shoes there, and he counted across. And counted back across his fingers. He thought, he sweated. 5 minutes went by. Everybody was completely silent. He finally, like a light bulb went off, got to a number. He said, it's 12. All the stands in front of him, all the people from his school began to weep, and then they began to chant, give him one more chance, one more chance. Oh, that was way better than Joel Osteen's joke this morning. Wow. We do 3 jokes. Did you hear about Bill Clinton's wife woke him up, or Tiger Woods' wife woke him up in the middle of the night, or Herman Cain's wife woke him up in the middle? Well, you get the point. I'm not sure. It was Bill Clinton's way I heard him. His wife woke him up and said, wake up, honey. Wake up, wake up. Kept shaking him, wake up, you've got to wake up. He finally woke up. He said, I hope you got a good reason for waking. He said, I've got a good reason for waking up. I've got to go to the bathroom. He said, you woke me up to tell you you've got to go to the bathroom. No, I woke you up to tell you to save my spot. That was pretty good. And we're getting worse here. This one was pre-approved by Brian. There's a guy in the motel. That makes you scared, don't it? A guy sitting in his motel one night and comes and knocks the door, opens the door, and security standing there. They said, sir, we're going to have to ask you to leave the motel. He said, leave the motel. He said, because we have evidence you peed in the pool. He said, my God, everybody pees in the pool. He said, yeah, but not from the balcony. Okay. Well, that got everybody in a good mood. Now you can hear the message today. We just sang a great song. How great is our God. She is more than welcome to stay in the service, or we have a nursery if y'all want, you know. And I want to tell you something. I have 11 children. It never bothered me for folks to walk in and out of the service with kids. Kids don't bother me. And when you adults go in and out 18 times to smoke cigarettes, it bothers me sometimes. But when the the kids have to go back and forth, that doesn't bother me at all. If y'all want to see if she wants to play in the nursery, it's right across to the women's bathroom. And then if she doesn't, bring her back in. That won't bother me in the least. I don't care if they stay now. I'm being honest. I don't care if the kids stay, especially her. That's one of the sweetest ones. She didn't distract anybody. We have had some running the aisles up here like Pentecostals and rolling in the floor, and I did kind of get, upset with them. But we got it either way. The nursery's good, or if you don't want the nursery, come back in. It don't matter to me. We sang that song, How Great Is Our God. And I don't know about you. Do you ever try to... Like if we're singing this song, How Great Our God, what are you picturing? If you're standing before a throne, like a big fancy chair or something, and is there somebody sitting on it? Or when you sing How Great Is Our God, do you picture the majesty of His creation? Or do you picture someone that you love? Or do you picture the mirror? Or do you picture, what is it that you picture? You know what the answer is? Most Christians, what they picture when they think of God, they picture an old man with a gray beard and gray hair and a robe sitting in a chair somewhere. And he's whatever ethnic persuasion you are, your God is usually the same. But it's always an old man, never a woman. The women, I've looked at surveys, and very seldom does anybody picture a woman when they sing about God, yet God is both male and female. God has many Hebrew names, and in the Hebrew, a word either is a female word or a male word, and God has many names. The breasty one is one of His names. God is a mother as Father. Now, He manifested as Father God, and the Bible is written, in the Bible, God is a man. He's male. But the Bible was also written by all men, you might have noticed that. And they were somewhat chauvinistic in the day the Bible was written. So, they left out pretty much the feminine side of God. But the book of Genesis tells us that Adam was made in the image of God. And if you'll really look in there and read what it says, even in your Bible, it says that in the image of God created He them, male and female created He him. Adam was male and female. And then God saw that it was not good for man to be so low, and in order to have fellowship, He removed, an aspect from him. He took a rib out of him. Now, the rib was not male or female. He didn't take the female out of Adam. A rib has no sex. But He took a rib out and formed another human being like a DNA, kind of like a cloning thing. There was some piece of DNA. So He formed another one, and I believe they were both male and female. Now, I'm not talking about physically, but I believe they both were in the image of God, not just Adam. Eve was not secondary. She didn't get the seconds. I believe as both of them stood there, they stood there, made and created in the image of God, and God is both male and female. He has both sides. And so do you. Some of you men are more in touch with your feminine side than others. Some of you women are more in touch with your male side than others. I know people that are right on the line, and they could be a woman or a man. I'm not talking physically. I'm talking, and we can talk physically if you want to. But for the most part, you know some women that act like men. And all you know some men that act like women. And it's not just learned behavior. It's not just trained behavior. Some people are just close line, and there's a line. But I better not this early in the service. So here we are, thinking about God. So what do you think about when we sing How Great Is Our God? Do you picture a woman sitting up there on the chair? Do you picture a man sitting on the chair? Do you picture a whirlwind of lights and fireworks and power and waterfalls rushing and gushing? I mean, what is God? Who is God? The Bible says no man has seen Him at any time. I mean, what are we doing? Maybe we just made up this God thing because we needed to think something out there was bigger than us because we're not doing that hard on our own. Maybe we wanted somebody to blame. Maybe for some cry out to because we can't get the help we need from the NC, so maybe we're crying out to an invisible force. Maybe man created God instead of God creating man. Did you ever think of that? Now, I don't believe that to be the truth, But I do believe that man has created the Christian God, the one that most Christians worship. I believe is a creation of man. It's not the God that I find in the Bible, and it's certainly not the one that lives in my heart. Because in lots of Christian circles today, they'll tell you about the God who, if he gets up in a bad mood, he might give you cancer. He might squash you. He might kill your children. He might. I mean, this God, if you cross him, if you don't tithe, if you don't, and I see one of them preach that one. If you don't tithe, if you don't live right, if you don't do right, if you don't chew right, if you don't talk right, if you don't walk right, if you don't put down that alcohol and stop them cigarettes and stop listening to that rock and roll music. Any of y'all go to church like that growing up? I went to a few like that, and they'll name all these things that might just off, and if you get him against you, there's no might happen. Is that the kind of God you grew up believing in? Was it a God who created an eternal torture chamber just to burn people in throughout eternity because they didn't act right or call him the right name or go to the right church or say the right prayer at the right time? That's the one I grew up believing in. A God who would allow your eternal existence and your eternal destiny depend on you making the right decision at an MYF, that's Methodist Youth Fellowship group, standing in a circle when they said, squeeze your hand if you want to know God. What if you didn't squeeze hard enough? What if you sort of squeezed, but you didn't want her to think you were flirting with her, so you just kind of half squeezed? Could you then spend half eternity in a torture chamber instead of a whole? Well, I grew up believing in this God that told me to forgive my enemies, but he wouldn't forgive his own. And when it came down to it, if somebody didn't act right or call him the right name, you know the Indians, remember the ones we stole America from? You know, America founded on Christian principles, the one we stole from the Indians, that America. Well, those Indians that used to live here, do you know what they call God? The Great Spirit. And God, whatever she is, he is, it is, the powerful, awesome God. When an Indian walks out there and looks at his crops and says, oh, Great Spirit, we need rain on our crops. The Christian God, the one we learned about, says, oh no, I ain't helping you, you heathen Indian. I'm burning you through eternity because you called me instead of Jehovah. But that's the kind of God an exclusive God, a God that only loved us, a God that only had a little select few, the ones that acted right, prayed right. We're lucky enough to be born in a Christian circle. What about India? What about the million? What about 1 billion Muslims who have been born in this world? Where do the babies come from? From God. There's a certain path they take to get here. God bless you women. But the babies ultimately come from God. So you mean God, 1 billion little precious babies, and chose their destiny and said, I'm going to give this one to that Muslim woman. And this baby will never hear about the sinner's prayer. This baby won't get to go to vacation Bible school and say, Jesus, come into my heart. So one day I'm going to cook this baby. I'm going to put it in a fire. I'm going to put it on the grill and I'm going to cook it. But I'm never going to let it get done. And after 1,000,000 years, I'm going to crank up the heat again. And I'm going to keep it cooking. Because it didn't say, Jesus, come into my heart. And the name of his son is not even Jesus. That's the American name, the English name that we gave him. His name is Yeshua HaMashiach. That's what when Mary was calling Jesus in to feed the cat, she didn't say, Jesus, come feed the kitty cat. She said, Yeshua. That was his name. But we didn't ask Yeshua to come into our heart, did we? We don't sing songs about Yeshua today, so we're calling him the wrong name too. We're like the Indians. I wonder if God, whoever or whatever He is, I wonder if He's tolerant enough to overlook the Indians' ignorance since they didn't call Him Jehovah and His Son Jesus. Would He be big enough, would He be good enough, would He be God enough to overlook the Great Spirit thing and go ahead and answer those prayers of those Indians, even though they were taught from children to call Him the Great Spirit? Can I stretch you this morning? Would He be big enough to listen to a prayer from someone who called Him Allah? Or would He automatically send that billion to hell to burn forever? Because that's what my Christian doctrine taught me. More dedicated than Christians. Most of the Muslims I know, most Muslims aren't terrorists. Honey, there's more Christian terrorists than Muslim terrorists. They're just dumber, the Christian ones. They've not been quite as successful in they just blow up tennis shoes in airplanes, and they blow up compounds and things like that. We haven't got as sophisticated as the Muslims, but there's just as many Christian terrorists as there are. A lot of them are pastoring churches this morning. A lot of the Christian terrorists are. So could God be big enough? Could He be God enough? Could He be tolerant enough to allow someone to call Him Bo Diddley? My name is Robert. A lot of people call me River. Some people call me Richard. And when somebody calls me Richard, I don't want to catch them on fire and burn them throughout eternity because they called me the wrong name. I know the intent of their heart. They're talking to me. I get that. Am I more merciful than God? Am I more compassionate than God? How many of you have children in this room? Or you care for children? What if that child spits in your face? Could you catch that child on fire? Could you light a torch and hold it to the child's arm for 30 seconds? 30 minutes? 30 years? 30,000 years? A million years? Oh, so you're more compassionate than God. You have more grace than God. Because my friend, God was certainly going to do that to everybody who drank. True confession. You don't have to. But how many of y'all in this room drink alcohol? I do. Okay, half of you lied. The other half. Okay. I should have said who don't, because there's probably 4 people. Let me see. I don't know if you ever are visitors. There's probably 5 of you in this room that don't drink alcohol. You just don't have a taste for it. Well, the church I grew up in, y'all all going to hell because y'all drink alcohol. It don't matter if it's 1 glass of wine once a year at Christmas, or 5 margaritas a night, or a 24-pack on the weekend. Whatever you drink, alcohol, you're going to hell. A woman with tattoos sitting right in front of me. She's marked her skin. Child, you wouldn't even be welcome in. So they'd stop her at the door and say, go home and put, cover those arms up, cover that neck up, dye that hair back the color it's supposed to be, and get them pants off, put a dress on, and don't shave them legs. Where's Pentecostals? The Pentecostal church was the ugliest women in town. Our church, they wouldn't put on makeup, they wouldn't wear any modern clothes. Who do you picture when I say God? And what is the nature of the God that you picture? Is He angry? Is He like the hall monitor at school? Is He like the little kiss-up kid in school that the teacher always let take names when she had to go out of the room for a few minutes, and they'd give you that look, they'd get up there with that piece of chalk, and they'd just watch for you to do something, and they'd write, Brian! And turn around, and and then Brian would stick his tongue at him, and they'd put, check mark by Brian, and, yeah. Is it what you have? Tell you about a God that I found after being in Christian circles for years and years and years. I wasn't satisfied that I knew the real God. It's just tea. I know I'm a little wired this morning. In 1 John 4, if you turn with me. I'm going to read something to you out of the Bible, and I want you to open your heart and open your mind up just for a minute, and let me give you a little different perspective. This is John, the love disciple, and he's writing this letter to a group of Christians who were kind of off base a little bit. And in 1 John 4, he says, "Beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits whether they're of God, because there's many false prophets going out into the world." There's a lot of people saying stuff about God that's not true. There were then and there are now. I mean, 1 John chapter 4, not big John, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, but over towards Revelation, there's 3 little Johns, and it's the first of the 3 little Johns. He said, "Beloved, don't believe every spirit, because there's a lot of spirits in the world, and some of them they're false prophets." In verse 2 he says, "Hereby know ye the Spirit of God." Here's how you know. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God. And every spirit that does not that Jesus Christ in the flesh is not of God. The word "come" there, if you look at the Bible was written in Hebrew, Greek, and some Aramaic. This is a Greek word, the word "come," and it is apocalypsis in the Greek dictionary. I've studied Greek and Hebrew for 22 years now. This word, if I painted a beautiful painting, if Charlotte painted a beautiful painting up here, and she didn't want us to see it, so she put a bed sheet over it, and we all got in here, and we all sat here waiting, and it was now time to show the painting, it would be the apocalypsis of the painting, the coming of the painting. That word literally means to uncover, to unveil, or to reveal. Every spirit that does not believe that Jesus is revealed, uncovered, and shown in the flesh, then that spirit is not of God. That spirit is Antichrist, he goes on to say here. Where is Jesus today? He's not in the manger. He's not on the cross. You might think he's in the chair. You might think he's in the chair sitting next to the other chair in the sky, flying around in circles. I don't know where your Jesus is. But where Jesus really is, according to Scripture, is he is in the flesh. He's in your flesh and he's in my flesh. He lives in us. When he left the earth, he said, "I'm coming back." And there's folks out there still saying, "Oh, Jesus isn't coming." He came back. On the day of Pentecost, he came back to the earth in the form of the Spirit. He didn't come back in a pregnant virgin's womb the second time. He came back in the form of the Spirit, and he moved on the inside of people, and he's lived there. So your Jesus, if he's in a manger, if he's up on a cross, if he's outside of a tomb, if he's out on the sky somewhere, it might be another spirit that's convinced you of that, because the Spirit of God would tell you that he lives inside you. Now, ask the kids. They got it figured out. Go ask a little kid, go to the nursery and say, "Where's Jesus live?" "In my heart." I mean, they got it. They won't say, through the black hole, there's a planet called heaven, and in that planet there's a city with gold streets, and he's on a chair, on a stage, I think, by the grandpa-looking God. He sits there, right there. Yeah, he sits on a throne, darling, but it's the throne of your heart. Yeah, a river runs out from under the throne, Revelation says so, but that's the river Jesus talked about when he said, "Out of your belly will flow a river of living water." Out of you flows the water, and he's sitting on the throne of your heart. He's here, inside of us. And every spirit that doesn't know that Jesus is in us, Paul tried to tell. He said, "Don't y'all know that you are the body of Christ?" They were worshiping a 6-foot-tall Jewish body with nail scars. They made an idol out of Mary and Joseph's son. And it is that same Jesus. But he's here in the form of the Spirit now. Isn't it strange that Jesus only spent 33 and a half years here on the planet, and he said, "One greater than me is coming"? I've got to move out of the way because one greater than me is going to come in after me. And the one who came in next was the Spirit, and he gets no emphasis. The Spirit of God gets no emphasis in the church. Jesus gets all the emphasis. And he himself said, one greater than me is fixing to come. But he says in John 17, he tells them, he says, I must go away that I may send the greater one. And if I go away, then I will come back to you. He lets them know that it's really going to be him, but it's not going to be in the form of a Jewish guy. He's going to be in the form of the Spirit. I had a heart catheterization recently, and I was in Atlanta, and I was at Piedmont, and I was laying there on the table, and I had a wonderful doctor from some country, not this one, and as most doctors are, for some reason. So and I'm thinking he was Muslim, but he was sitting there, doing the little, shoving the camera up my leg, you know how they do, and poking into my heart to look around, whatever they're doing. And I said, tell me something. He said, what? I said, do you see Jesus in there anywhere? He said, what are you talking about? I said, Jesus, remember him, Mary and Joseph, the guy that died on the cross? Do you see him in my heart anywhere? He said, no, did not see Jesus in your heart. I'm sorry to tell you. And he got right in on the, he joked with me about it. I said, well, they told me he was in there somewhere. He said, no, I'm afraid not for you, Jesus, not in your heart. So, I was greatly concerned because I've asked him in there about 10,763 times just to be sure, because we don't want to cook forever on the eternal grill. So I've asked him in a bunch. So it's not my fault if he's not there. I'm thinking, no, there's no little G.I. Joe Jewish Jesus guy in your heart. But there's this Spirit that lives on the inside of you. It's the Spirit of Jesus. This is semantics, and it's really pretty clear. And I don't know how you could disagree with me on this, but Jesus doesn't live in you. The Spirit lives in you. Now, it's the Spirit of Jesus. I get that. God lives on the inside of you. All right, we got that much figured out. Now, watch this thing unfold. Verse 3, 1 John 4, every spirit that confesses not that Jesus has come in the flesh, that he's here in the flesh, is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist. Antichrist was a European businessman that was going to come on the scene and try to make us take tattoos on our head. One little word can mess you up. Do you know the mark of the beast? First of all, it's not the mark of Satan, it's the mark of man. 666 is the number of man. The Bible tells you that. Do you know where that number is? And it's all allegorical. It's not a literal thing. They're not going to be tattooing your head and hand. And you know what? If you'll just read, if you'll just look at it, it says that the number 66 was in their head, not on their head. It's the mind of man. It's man's ability. Man thinking he can do it all with no help. And it was in their hand, not on their hand. It's not a tattoo on your hand. I started to get me a 666 tattoo on my head just to freak out religious people. But, my mom was still alive when I had that thought, so she wouldn't let me do it. But it's not something that's on you. It's something that's in you. The problem is not on you. The problem is in you. That's what point they were trying to make. But the spirit of Antichrist, they told us, it was going to be a European businessman that's going to come on the scene, and he's going to have 10 nations. Remember back in the day, some of y'all that went to evangelical churches, remember when they told us Henry Kissinger was the Antichrist? And then, let me say, Jimmy Carter was the Antichrist. Richard Nixon was the Antichrist. As we begin to move forward, they pick out Obama's the new Antichrist among Christian circles. I actually heard a preacher, y'all, on an AM radio station. He said, have you seen Obama? He's not black. He's not white. He's not Muslim. He's not Christian. He's not young. He's not old. He's not. And they went down there because he's the Antichrist. And he's got to appeal to all men. I'm thinking, dear Jesus, y'all picked out more Antichrist. JFK was the Antichrist. That's why they killed him. They thought he was the Antichrist. I'm personally leaning towards Rick Santorum, but since he's out of the race, I'm thinking maybe not. I may have to go with Romney. I'm not sure. Every spirit that doesn't understand that Jesus is in us is anti-Christ, against the real picture. It's not some evil antichrist. It's just anti. Drive a Ford. That means it's an anti-Chevrolet. It's not a Chevrolet. It's not Christ. It's anti-Christ, not Christ. Something other than Christ. It's not an evil monster. It's just something other than. So if you believe a message that Jesus is out there somewhere, then that's a message other than the one Christ, the Christos, the power of God would like for you to believe, because you need to believe that He's in you. Paul says in Colossians 1:27 that Christ in you is the hope of glory. Not Christ in the sky, not Christ on the cross, not Christ in the manger, not Christ coming back, not Christ in the grocery store. It's Christ in you, inside of you. That's where Christ. Somebody said, Brother Robert, when I pray, I don't feel like my prayers get any higher than this ceiling. I said, they don't need to get any higher than your nose, because He's inside of you. Yeah. He lives here. This is where God is. You're of God, little children, and you've overcome them. Because greater is He that's in you than he that's in the world. Not greater is He that's in the... Greater in you. The greater one lives in you. In people. Not in skies. They're of the world, therefore they speak of the world, and the world hears them. The word of God, he that knows God hears us. And he that is not of God doesn't hear us. Hereby know we the spirit of truth, the spirit of error. Beloved, now watch this verse 7. Beloved, let us love one another. For love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. Who knows God? The church preacher. Who knows God? It's the ones whose lives have changed. The ones who prayed the sinner's prayer, which is not in the Bible, by the way. There's no sinner's prayer in the Bible. It's the ones who prayed the sinner's prayer, the ones who quit their bad habits, the ones who changed their lives, the ones who are living holy, and the ones who spoke in tongues. I mean, at our church, you had to really qualify. I mean, it was like, you had to really qualify to know God. But who really knows God? John 1:9 says that He's the light that came into the world to light every man. We've got this idea in Christianity that if someone's not acting like we want them to, we're moralists. We believe that morality is Christianity, and morality is subjective to who's writing the rules. You might think it's immoral to get a tattoo. I don't. You might think it's immoral to smoke a cigarette. I don't. I don't smoke. Can't afford them. But I don't think it's wrong, and I don't think it's a problem. I don't think it's a moral issue to smoke or not to smoke. In my Pentecostal church, it was a moral issue. It was a moral issue to watch television. And you were immoral if you watched television. You were immoral if you dressed well. You were immoral if you dyed your hair. You were immoral if you pierced your body. You were immoral. Their list of immorality. See, they thought morality was Christianity, and they posted their rules up there. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the one that we're not supposed to eat, and what not to do. Do this, don't do that. God told him in the beginning, don't eat of that tree, just live. Just enjoy life, the tree of life. And immediately, they ate the fruit of that tree. I believe it was a fig tree, because they tried to cover up with fig leaves. And later, Jesus cursed the fig tree. And it all makes sense. If you look at that, it wasn't an apple. Nobody ever said it was an apple. We made that up. The book at the dentist office made that up. Remember that book when you went to the dentist office? I used to love to go to the dentist office because I was going to get to see some almost naked people. I thought, because Adam and Eve was standing there and they just had a strategically placed leaf over private parts, and I was like, But they had a big old apple hanging from the tree, and Eve was, reaching out for the apple. It wasn't no apple, it was a fig. They covered up with fig leaves. And the thing that trips you up is what you'll use to try to cover. Religion trips you up, and you try to make a new religion of cover-up. They started the first religion, sewing fig leaf aprons to cover up something that God didn't even care about. God didn't care if they were naked. He made them naked. What did He ask them when He showed up? He said, "Who told us?" Religion told them they were naked. And they formed the first religion. Oh, we got to fix this. You don't have to fix anything. You're perfect. Somebody lied and told you you weren't. You bought into it. You've been trying to become perfect ever since. God made you in His image. You're still made in His image. I don't care whose rules you broke. The Muslim rules, the Baptist rules, the Pentecostal rules, or your mama's rules. You're still made in the image of God. You're still His child. And the Christ is within you. And the discovery of Christ in traditional evangelical circles, we find somebody who's less moral than us. We don't like their sexuality, or we don't like their hair color, or we don't like, the way they live. So we want to introduce our God, but He's going to help them get like us, to more like us. And so, come here, I want you to meet our God. He's down here at the altar. And really, God lives inside of them. And the discovery of God must happen within them. That's where Christ is. Christ in you is the hope of glory. So we have to help them discover the Christ within themselves, because He's been there since the beginning of time. And that's where God lives. He lives inside of us. And John knew that. He says, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God." One of the meanest, craziest people I ever knew. He was a drug dealer. He started at 8 years old running moonshine over the mountaintop in the back of a car at 8 years old. He swears to it. His brothers swear to it. Drug dealer, pornographer. Him and his wife, they've sued everybody in the world. They have scammed and sued and stolen robbed banks, and those evil people I know. But I've watched him with his dog. And he loves his dog. He loves fried chicken. He loves his crazy wife. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God, and knoweth God. He knows God, because he knows love. For love is of God. Now, he says it here. This is John saying it. Now, hang with me for a minute. I thought you couldn't know God until you said the sinner's prayer and quit smoking. But you know God because He is the heart of you, and you have the capacity to love because God is love. That's what God really is. That's who God really is. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God, and knoweth God. He that loveth not, knoweth not God. Say, read it with me. For God is love. You ready for a great revelation? God is not a grandpa sitting on a chair. That's not what God is. I know the Bible storybooks in X-brand generic church taught you that. God is simply love. Now, a fourth of you believed that when I said it. Because you want and you want Grandpa in the sky to be God, because it's think there's a grandpa watching over you with all seeing eye. Our Pentecostal preacher used to tell us, God's watching you. I used to take a bath in the dark because I didn't want God to see me naked. And then one day the preacher said, He sees in the dark. I thought, dang it, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. And you want to hold on to Grandpa in this. You know what God really is? Love. I had two grandmothers. And they both knew God because God knew both of them, and they were part of God. But the manifestation of God through those two people, Charlotte can tell, was very different. I had one grandmother who never darkened the door of a church. She was a gypsy witch. Her and her whole family. I mean, child, they did crystal balls and tarot cards, and they were like, woo! But that woman loved me. She'd give me anything in her house. Every time I walked in the door, her arms were wrapped around me. She would have died for me at any given time. She showed me the spirit of the true God. My other grandmother, president of the Eastern Star. That's one of the Methodist cult groups. They have to keep it kind of secret. But she was president of the Eastern Star. Perfect Sunday school attendance for 25 years. Didn't miss for 25 years. Played the piano in church. Knew every hymn by heart. Wife of a preacher. Knew the Bible. One of the meanest witches that you ever met in your life. I hated her. I'd walk in her house and touch her piano, and she'd slam the lid on my fingers or smack me with a ruler or something for touching her piano or touching her whatnot. Now sit down over there. You sit down over there. And you behave. Wouldn't have given you anything if you'd begged for it. Stingy, mean, hateful Christian. Knowledgeable. Full of doctrine. Full of baloney. Now, I believe she's in heaven today because she knew God inside. She just never got... She had so much religion, you couldn't see through the religion to the real heart of her. My other grandmother wouldn't pass anybody's religious test, would she? She wasn't welcome at church. That's where I felt the love. So that's where God wasn't in the religion of my religious grandmother. He was in the love of my grandmother that did not fit the bill of the traditional Christianity, picture of what a Christian ought to be. So where was God? Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. What is God? He's love. And everybody loves something or somebody. Not everybody knows Grandpa in the sky and can keep the rules that he's given out to his Muslim leaders or Christian leaders or Buddhist leaders or Indian leaders or whoever it is. Not everybody can know that God because you have to know Him through rules. But everybody can experience love. Not everybody can understand the Bible, the most confusing book ever written in my personal opinion. But everybody can understand the hug. Everybody can understand selfless giving. Everybody can understand, I don't care who you are or what you are. I'm not about your choices. I'm about love. What? Unconditional love is the Spirit of God. And if your religion, whatever it is, or whatever your persuasion is, if it's exclusive and y'all don't include gay folks, it is not of God. And if y'all don't include yellow folks, it's not of God. And if y'all don't include pierced folks, it's not of God. And if y'all it's not of God. And if y'all don't include whores, it's not of God. And whatever religion you grew up in, if it excludes anyone, it is not the Spirit of God, because love belongs to every human being, and that we don't need rules. We just need love. And if we embrace the love of God, something happens inside of us, and guess what? We become better rule keepers by most standards in most religions, because morality across the board, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not sleep with thy neighbor's wife, that's all pretty much a given in every religion. And guess what? When your heart is full of love, you don't want to steal. When you're really embraced by love and you're embracing love, you don't neighbor's wife because you know that would hurt him, and you don't want to hurt your neighbor because you love your neighbor. You don't want to kill somebody because you understand they're just having a bad day I got to consider what's happened to them and what happened to them growing up and what they're going through, and you can look past their outside. That's why Paul said we have this in this earthen vessel we have a treasure. It's not about the earthen vessel, it's about the treasure that's in us. That's why he said, do not judge any man by the outward appearance, but look upon the heart, because in the heart of every man is God/love. Everybody has love in their heart. The meanest man in the world loves a kitten. He may not want you to know it. He may threaten to strangle it. But when it's going, meow, or a little tiny puppy runs up to him, love is there. And it takes different things to bring that love out of different people. God is not a grandpa in the sky. God is love. And if we can ever remember that, if we can get this one thing in our mind, I'm going to help you get it in your mind today. And you may revert back to thinking of grandpa, but even if it's grandpa in the sky, think of him as just a loving grandpa. Somebody that wraps his arms around you no matter what. Somebody that's going to love you no matter what. And God makes sure that we have these kind of examples in our lives through a grandma, a grandpa, an uncle, an aunt, a mom, or dad. Do you have somebody in your life that loves you no matter what? I mean, you've been through some stuff. You made some bad choices. I mean, you did some stuff, but they just kept loving you anyway. Some people are... If you can find a life partner that'll love you no matter what, if you can find somebody that's still, woo, honey, I don't care who they are, rich, young, old, poor, black, white, ugly, skinny, male or female, if you can find somebody that'll, or what, I believe love happens soul to soul anyway. Grab a hold of somebody love you like that. Sure in your life that you have somebody. We've all had at least one example of somebody who loved us no matter what we did. It's nice when it's your mama or your daddy. I mean, that's a good thing if you can find as a parent or as a partner. So God is love. Let's get that. Before I go on, I'm over halfway finished. I'm not going to keep you much longer. But God is not a grandpa. God is love. So you've been knowing God long before you went to that altar and said, come in, Jesus, come in, Jesus, come in, Jesus. Because you knew love when you was a little baby. You've been knowing God a lot longer. You knew God before you were baptized. You knew God way before you joined the church. Oh, honey, you knew God laying in that crib. You knew God in that womb. You knew God before you got to that womb. You were part of Him. So God is love. Verse 8 says, and this was manifested, the love of God toward us, because God sent His only begotten Son into the world that we might live through Him. Read all this when you get a chance. I'm not going to read it all to you, but go on down, look at verse 17 or 18. Love. But perfect love without fear, because fear has torment. Fear is not made perfect in love. The whole fear factor of religion, if you don't act right, if you don't pray right, if you don't live right, God's going to cook you on a grill and you'll never get done. They try to make you meet their moral code through fear. Any of you parents who are trying to parent through fear, if you don't clean your room up, I'm going to beat the snot out of you. That's not the way. It's through love that we are told to lead our children and to discipline our children. The word discipline comes from the root word where we get disciple. It means to teach, not to beat the hell out of. A lot of circles, they take crazy Solomon, and Solomon's crazy. It went mad. His fingernails grew out and his hair grew out, and he sat in the field naked eating grass. I mean, Solomon went crazy. And a lot of his writings in the Bible are completely crazy. I'll take you through Proverbs sometime, and there's some wisdom in there. There's some crazy stuff in Proverbs. You know what it says? Beat your children until they're black and blue. It says, the blueness of a wound cleanseth the inner man, and stripes the inward parts of the belly, to beat them with a rod. You know what a rod is? It's what a shepherd used. It's a big wooden pole that they used to beat the wolves with, and the Bible says to beat your children with a big wooden pole. That's just not fitting with the love theme in my mind and my heart. So, I have to read that with a grain of salt and realize that he said it for a reason, in a particular place, for a particular reason, and it's not an instruction for me to go beat my children with a wooden pole. So if you're doing that, turn in your wooden poles and stop doing that. Herein is love made perfect, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment. But he is, so are we in this world. In verse 17. As he is, so are we in this world. No different. The way he was in the world, we're in the world. How was he in the world? He was empowered by God. God lived in him. God lives in us. It's the same. We love him because he first loved us. If a man say, I love God, but he hates his brother, then he's a liar. You can't love God and hate homosexuals. You can't love God and hate drunkards. You can't love God and hate child molesters. You can't love God and hate white people. You can't love God and hate black people. You can't love God and hate your grandpa. You can't love God and you can't hate people. Because if you truly have his love flowing in you, it's impossible for you to hate anybody. Because the God kind of love takes into consideration everything that made them do that thing to you. You can look beyond the act of what they did to you to make you hate them and see the motivation, see their circumstances. Love makes you look past them to what would make them do something like this. Real love looks at the whole picture, not just what they did to you. Oh, they did this to me, so I hate them. Not if you're operating in the love of God. You can't. And verse 21 says, and this commandment have we from him, that he who loves God, love his brother also. Now, in 1 Corinthians 13, and I'm going to close here, and we know that to be the love chapter, right? And we've got those few verses that we preach about. We preach it at weddings, and we preach it at funerals, and we talk about the love of God. And this is love. So if God is love, I'm not plagiarizing anything to take this word charity or love and just say God, because God is love. They're the same, right? They're interchangeable. God is love. So now listen to these verses, 1 Corinthians 13, but instead of saying love, and your Bible says love, or it says charity, one of the two, I'm going to say God. Now this will tell you how God really is. God suffers long, and he is kind. God does not envy. God does not vaunt himself up, and he is not puffed up. God does not behave himself unseemly. He does not seek his own. God is not easily provoked, and he thinks no evil. God does not rejoice in iniquity, but he rejoices in the truth. God bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things, and never fails. Now the God of religion that I learned about wasn't love. He was discipline. He was judgment. He was just. And we had 1,000 words for him, but he wasn't really love. He didn't suffer long. He wouldn't put up with much. He got angry easily. He was jealous. Love is never jealous. They say, God's a jealous God. A certain prophet in times of old, before the cross, made that statement. Doesn't make it so. God's not jealous, because love is never jealous. God's not afraid that the TV's going to take his place in your life. He's not jealous of the TV. He'd rather be first place, and you get that. God is love. Love is God. You do this sometime, and God, that passage there. I invite you to do this sometime. I wrote down a few scriptures that I'm going to read to you, and these are scriptures that include the word God. But I'm going to slide in the word love, because we learned today that God is love. Not just a grandpa in the sky. I'll let you keep your grandpa if you need to, but just make sure he's a loving grandpa. God is love. So listen to these few scriptures about if I replace the word God with the word love. Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, love created the heavens and the earth. And that works. It was love that made this beautiful place that we live in. It was the love of God. How about Genesis 5:24? And Enoch walked with love and was not, for love took him. Now it says in your King James, Enoch walked with God and God took him. Enoch walked in love. If you walk in love, love will take you. If you walk in love with your neighbors, if you'll just let God pour out through you and just love on folks and quit trying to make them meet your moral code, just love them. It will take you away. You will be taken away. And we won't even see you anymore. We'll just see love. When we see you coming, we won't say, here comes Sister Hairleen. We'll say, here comes love walking up in that door. Because we know when we get over there to her, she's going to love on us and accept us and embrace us and do what love does. How about Deuteronomy 33:27? Eternal love is thy refuge. Not just eternal God. God's kind of a hard word, isn't it? God. And God's not even... Y'all realize that's a title, right? Like hairdresser. His name's not G-O-D. His name is Jehovah Nisi. Jehovah Shalom. Jehovah... he's got 27 names. His name's not God. That's like saying hairdresser. That's like calling me preacher. My name's not preacher. My name's Rob. Preacher's what I do. God's what he does. Moses was the first one ever asked God his name. Abraham and them, they were satisfied just to know him as the God of Abraham, the hairdresser of Robert, the God of Abraham. Moses said, now, who do I tell him sent me? Remember when God was talking to him out of the bush? He said, who do I tell him? You know what he said, tell him? He said, tell him, I am. When you get in front of Pharaoh and Pharaoh says, now who is it that's saying let these people go? Look at him boldly and say, I am. Because I'm in you. I'm part of you. We are of God. We just read that in 1 John 4. You know what it means to be of God? I'm not talking about that's of God, that's not of God. I'm talking about if you get a big old coconut cake up in here and you slice on a plate, that slice is of the cake. It's part of the cake. It's the same as the cake. Tastes exactly like the cake. We are of God. A slice of God. Tastes exactly like it. Greater is he that's in us than he that's in the world. Everything in that slice of cake is in that cake. It's just a smaller slice of it. That's how we're connected to God. Not through saying the right prayer. We get some amazing invisible string from us to the black hole and out to some galaxy where God lives on a chair as a grandpa. We are divinely connected to the force of love. And there's nothing more powerful in this earth than love. God is love. Not a grandpa on a chair. 1 Kings 18:21 says, if the Lord be love, follow him. It's easy to follow love, isn't it? It's easy to want to sit. If we had a covered dish dinner again today, that's probably why some of y'all came back. We thought we was going to feed you again. Now I get it. Well, we don't do that every week. We're going to do it once a month, though, all summer long. I like covered dish. But when you get your plate filled up with 5 pounds of ham and 8 pieces of chicken, I saw what some of you did. Some of you must not even eat at home. I don't know. And somebody got half an ounce's green beans in 1 scoop. I thought, where's the beans? Anyway, next time, let's serve on saucers, those big platters. These people get too much food. I like to not got any. Anyway, if you walk out there with your plate of food, and there's a spot at this table, and a spot at that table, and a spot at that table, you know where you're going to sit? Where you can feel the most love. We just want love. That's all we want. Listen, I want a dog that loves me. I don't want a dog that bites me. I don't want a dog that bites me. I don't want a dog. That's kind of like a dyslexic thing. God and dog, D-O-G-G-O-D. I don't want either one that bites me. I want them both that love me. Everybody's looking for love. But we're looking in the wrong place, because if we're looking in Christian doctrine, the God that we found there is kind of... okay. How about... oh, I love this one, Micah 6:8. Walk humbly with thy love instead of with thy God. It just kind of adds a little softer flavor to it when you replace the word God with love. And I think you're fine doing that, because John told us that God is love. Love is a spirit. How about if love be for us, who can be against us? How about love is faithful, love is kind? How about love is not the author of confusion? How about love is manifest in the flesh? How about love is light? How about love himself shall be with them? How about love shall wipe away every from their eye? And do we have to wait till we get to heaven to walk in love? We have it now. Paul said the fruit of the Spirit is love. The evidence of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, meekness, kindness, faith, and temperance. Love is the very first thing he mentioned. If the Spirit is in you and flowing out of you, it's love is the first thing we'll see. Not judgment, not correction, not what's wrong. What you'll do is accept us. You won't even see what's wrong. You don't even look at the outward. You look at the inward. And blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see love or God. Interchangeable. God is love. I've got a Guidepost magazine up here. I don't know if any of you get them. This one is, it's an old one, so you didn't read it recently. Somebody shared it with me when I was at the Bible study this weekend in North Carolina. And they took a group of kids, and just to see what they would do, they gave them a camera, and they said, we want you to go out and take a picture of God. That's your assignment this week, and bring it back. So they were interested to see what they brought back. One of them brought back a picture of their mama cooking something for them. One of them brought back a picture of the ocean. One brought back a picture of a bus, because that bus takes them to and from school and home. One of them brought back a picture of their big brother who was taking a picture of them. One of them brought back a picture of a mountain, and the peak of the mountain went up and jutted up in the air, and they said, this is God. It's pointing at God. One took a picture of a pathway. If I gave you all a camera, and I said, come back next Sunday with your best picture of God, what would it be? Would it be Willie Nelson sitting on a chair from the set of TBN? Would it be Kenny Rogers with a little longer beard, sitting on a fancy chair with diamonds in the arms and legs? What picture would you bring me back? Would you bring a picture of your dog? When they're looking at you like, you're my hero. You hung the moon. You're the greatest thing I've ever seen. I wish everybody knew me like my dog does. I'm telling you, that dog's got it right. So, I mean, y'all don't know me like a dog. Our dogs love us. They know how to love, don't they? And isn't it great? You can scold them. You can pop them on the butt. You can yell at them. And 3 seconds later, they have forgiven you, and they love you like they always did. They're not like us. They don't hold grudges. They know love. What kind of picture would you bring me back? Would you bring me, I bet, me a picture of some mean, judgmental uncle of yours that calls you a tramp? I bet you wouldn't bring me a picture of some old preacher that said you was a whore and that you was going to hell because you liked somebody of the same sex. I bet you wouldn't bring me a picture of somebody that was mean to you. But I bet if we all brought that picture up in here, we'd have pictures of sweet grandmas. I bet somebody would bring a picture of a little baby. I bet Charlotte would bring a picture of flowers. Probably one that she painted. She'd throw the camera away and paint one. I know Robbie Joe would bring a picture of me, and Levi probably would too, because I'm probably the greatest love they ever see in their lives. What would you bring? Think about it. Your husband? A picture of your wife? I hope so. I hope if you have a partner, if you have a wife, I hope that's the picture that you bring up in here. If not, get them a CD of this message and take it home to them. Maybe they'll get it. I don't know. No guarantees. What is love? Love is God. What is God? God's just love. That's all. What if that's the message that John was trying to get across? What if that's the real message of the Bible, that God is simply love? That He's not a mean grandpa in the sky that's taking notes and you're in trouble when you get there? What if He's just love? I happen to believe that to be the truth. So you go share God this week. Not by telling people your doctrine. You go share God by loving some folks. Find some that nobody else loves and love on them. It's easy to love people that love you back. Find some that don't love you and show the love of God to them. God so loved the world, He made a sacrifice. Make a sacrifice. I know it's easy to buy lunch for that person you love, but buy lunch for somebody you don't love this week so much. Or you don't enjoy their company so much. Show them, bless their hearts, they just need to see the kind of love that only you can give them. Did you ever think maybe that's why you're in their life? Because you're the one that God chose to show them that amazing unconditional love? Father, thank you. Love, thank you. Spirit of love that's in all of us, thank you. I'm not praying to a grandpa in the sky. I'm calling on the love that's in all of our hearts to be manifest this week. Let us feel that love. Let us see that love in our lives and in the lives of others. Let us operate in such a pure heart that when we look at others, that we'll see that love. It may be buried deeply, usually by religion. But let us observe and see that love and call it forth. Let us call forth the love from each other's lives. If there's any in here who have unforgiveness in their heart towards any person, Father, I ask that your amazing love would well up like a tsunami, and that you would flood through them, and that forgiveness would become possible. You forgave us all everything, and you live in us. Allow your love to cause forgiveness to flow towards the people who have hurt us the most. Love is powerful. Love is truth. Love is real. This week, Lord, teach us to walk in love. Because that's walking in you. Because you are love. Thank you. In Jesus. Amen. You are dismissed in love to go and be called to bed.